Elias Rivers never imagined that accepting a peaceful research assignment on an alien military station would place him at the center of a silent storm. He had come from Earth with a calm heart and a patient nature, hoping to learn about the distant species known as the Arothi. They were a proud warrior race, famous for discipline, honor, and strict rituals. Their culture valued strength, sharp movements, and unwavering obedience. Every Arothi child grew up learning how to stand, how to bow, how to fight, and how to show respect in ways that felt ancient, almost sacred. Humans admired their beauty and power from afar, but very few ever stood inside their training halls. Elias was one of the rare lucky ones. He lived on the outer ring of the station, in a quiet research block, where he spent most of his time observing Arothi customs. He kept a small room filled with notes, sketches, and recordings about their language and values. Every morning, he woke early, prepared his uniform neatly, and walked through the shining metal corridors to the main hall. Each step echoed softly beneath his boots, reminding him that he was the only human on this level. He didn't mind the isolation. He was used to working alone, and studying alien cultures gave him a sense of purpose. But there was one Arothi who never allowed him to remain unnoticed. Captain Salira Verath. Salira was respected across the entire station. Her armor carried the deep blue markings of a high-ranking officer, and her presence alone made younger warriors straighten their backs. Where others walked, she strode. Where others spoke, she commanded. Her voice was clean and sharp, and her golden eyes could silence an entire room. Most humans would have felt intimidated by her, but Elias watched her with quiet admiration. She moved like a storm trapped inside a disciplined form, strong yet controlled, harsh yet strangely graceful. Salira, however, did not understand him at all. From the day he arrived, she could not figure out what to do with the soft-spoken human who followed station rules better than some of her own squad members. At first, she believed he was fragile. Humans were known for messy emotions and unpredictable reactions, yet Elias was different. He listened to instructions carefully, observed without interrupting, and stayed out of conflicts. The Arothi warriors whispered that he was too calm, too gentle, too hard to read. Even Salira admitted silently that she didn't know what to make of him. That confusion reached its peak the day she decided to use him in a training demonstration. It began during one of her usual drills. The training hall smelled faintly of heated metal and dust from the floor mats. Warriors stood in tight lines, waiting for her command. Salira watched them with her arms folded behind her back. Her sharp gaze inspected every detail, the straightness of their posture, the readiness in their hands, the fire in their eyes. She demanded perfection. Anything less was unacceptable. Elias stood near the entrance, observing, taking notes, and trying his best not to draw attention. He respected her space and remained silent unless asked something. But that day, Salira turned her eyes toward him with unexpected interest. "You, human, step forward." Her voice carried through the hall like the clang of metal. Elias froze for a moment. Not out of fear, but uncertainty. He closed his notebook gently and walked toward her, aware that the entire squad now stared at him. His steps were steady, and his expression remained calm, even though he knew nothing good ever came from being summoned in front of 30 warriors. Salira tilted her head slightly as he approached. She studied him as if trying to solve a puzzle. "Today's drill is about command response," she announced. "A warrior must obey instantly and without hesitation. Even in cultures that are not our own, this principle must be understood." Her squad listened closely, unsure where she was going with this. Salira turned back to Elias. "I will give a command. You will refuse it." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Refuse? Captain?" "Yes," she said sternly. "Humans are known for disobedience. I intend to prove that point to my squad. Resistance is natural to your kind." Elias blinked, slightly surprised by the assumption, but he did not argue. He simply nodded once. Salira stepped back, her golden eyes locked onto him. "Good. Now we begin." The hall fell silent. No one breathed. No one moved. Every warrior watched with curiosity, some with amusement. They expected the human to panic or stammer, or back away. Salira lifted her chin slightly. Human, she said firmly. Kneel. Her voice struck the air with authority. Everyone waited. Everyone expected the same thing. Refusal. But Elias did not refuse. Instead, he moved slowly, carefully lowering himself to one knee. His hands settled gently on his thigh, and his back remained straight. His expression stayed calm, respectful, almost peaceful. The entire hall sucked in a sharp breath. He did not kneel out of fear. He did not kneel because of pressure. He kneeled because the gesture meant something to him, something personal, something he hadn't explained to anyone. It reminded him of unity, trust, and purpose he once felt during old Earth traditions. To him, kneeling wasn't about being weak. It was about showing focus, understanding, and connection. Salira's eyes widened. For the first time in many cycles, someone had genuinely surprised her. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice lower, confused. "You gave a command," Elias answered quietly. "I followed it. That was not the point. You were supposed to refuse." "Why would I refuse a command that holds no harm?" he asked softly. "You are my superior here." Her squad whispered loudly now. Some exchanged confused looks. Others stared at Elias with new curiosity. The human did not tremble. He did not avert his gaze. He did not look humiliated. If anything, he seemed grounded, steady, and strangely at peace. Salira took a step closer. "Do you understand what this act means in our culture?" "Yes," Elias said gently. "I have studied your rituals. Then you know it is a gesture of deep respect and discipline." "I respect your leadership," he said simply. "And I do not fear discipline." Her chest tightened at those words. She couldn't explain why. His posture was perfect, not awkward, not hesitant, not forced. As if kneeling came naturally to him. As if he had longed for a moment where strength could be shown through calm acceptance rather than chaos. Salira felt something unfamiliar stir inside her, a feeling she didn't like because she couldn't control it. She cleared her throat sharply. "Stand." Elias rose smoothly to his feet. Again, no hesitation, no confusion. His eyes met hers with quiet confidence. "Human," she said, trying to regain control of the moment. "Why did you kneel without hesitation?" "Because you needed someone to follow your command," he answered. "And I trust your purpose. That is enough." The hall fell into complete silence. Salira's jaw tightened. Trust was a serious word among her people. It was not given lightly. Warriors only trusted those who proved their honor through action, not words. Yet here was a human, a species known for unpredictability, offering trust with steady eyes and a calm voice. She had ordered him to kneel only to make a demonstration about human stubbornness. But instead, he had shown her something she had not expected, something that unsettled her. "Dismissed," she said suddenly, unable to maintain the moment any longer. The warriors bowed their heads and began forming lines again, but their minds remained on what they had just witnessed. Elias returned to his notes, though his hands moved a bit slower. He didn't regret kneeling, he had meant it, but he wasn't sure how the Arothi captain would interpret his action. Salira, meanwhile, could not look away from him. Her thoughts bounced between confusion and curiosity. Why had he obeyed? Why had his eyes shown calm instead of fear? Why did he seem relieved when he kneeled? For the rest of the drill, Salira's focus wavered. Her usually sharp commands came a fraction slower, and she caught herself glancing toward Elias more than once. Her squad noticed but said nothing. They had never seen their captain unsure of anything. She ended training earlier than usual. As the warriors left, whispering among themselves, she approached Elias with slow, deliberate steps. He sensed her presence and closed his notebook again. "Today was unexpected," she said quietly. "For me as well," he admitted. "You were supposed to resist. You did not. I saw no reason to resist something that held meaning." "And kneeling holds meaning to you?" she asked. "Yes," Elias said, his voice gentle. "More than you might expect." She studied him again, trying to read him the way she read warriors. But humans were different. Soft on the surface, yet full of quiet storms inside. She sensed something deep in him, something he didn't show openly. Salira finally spoke again, softer this time. Human, Elias. This station may not be ready for someone like you. Elias smiled slightly. Then I will learn to be ready for it. The station lights dimmed as evening approached. And for the first time since he arrived, Salira felt the beginning of something she did not yet understand, something that would tie their paths together more tightly than any command ever could. Elias expected Salira's confusion to fade by the next morning, but instead it seemed to grow deeper. The Arathi captain was a woman known for clear decisions and sharp instincts. Yet every time she saw him after the kneeling incident, she paused a little too long, as if remembering a moment she hadn't been able to process. Her squad whispered that something had changed, but they didn't know what. Even Elias didn't fully understand it. He arrived at the training hall early, hoping to study their new drill routines without distracting anyone. He walked across the polished floor, listening to the faint hum of the station's energy lines beneath the metal panels. He liked mornings here. Everything felt quiet, balanced, and peaceful before the warriors arrived. But today, he found Salira, already inside, standing alone, in the middle of the hall. She was silent, her arms folded behind her back, staring at the floor as if replaying something only she could see. Her armor caught the light in sharp lines, but her expression was softer than usual, almost thoughtful. When Elias approached, she didn't turn immediately. She spoke first, her voice low and calm. "Human, you are early. I prefer studying when the hall is empty," Elias said. "It helps me understand the purpose behind each movement." "Purpose," she repeated, as if the word meant something heavy today. She finally turned toward him. "Do you believe every command has a purpose?" "Most commands," he answered. "Not all." "What about mine?" she asked. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. "Yours usually do." Her eyes narrowed slightly. Not in anger but in confusion. She wasn't used to having someone trust her intentions this openly. Her own warriors obeyed her because of rank and discipline, not personal belief. Yet Elias followed her because he saw meaning, not because she demanded it. That difference unsettled her. "I reviewed the recordings from yesterday," she said suddenly. "Every frame. Slowly. Many times." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "To understand," she admitted. "Did you find anything?" "No," she said, though it wasn't quite true. "Only more questions." He set his notebook aside. "What questions?" Salira hesitated. Arathi captains did not share doubts. They did not admit confusion. But she had reached a point where silence felt heavier than honesty. "When I commanded you to kneel, you did not react like an Arathi. And you did not react like the humans in our archives." Her voice lowered. "Your posture, your expression, it looked like you accepted something familiar, something you wanted." Elias didn't deny it. "Yes." She blinked. "Why?" "Why?" He took a slow breath. "On Earth, kneeling is complicated. Sometimes it is honor. Sometimes respect. Sometimes humility. Sometimes connection. But for me, it was always about trust." Salira stared at him quietly. "When I kneel," he continued softly, "I am not lowering myself. I am grounding myself. It reminds me that strength can come from calmness, not just force." Salira felt something shift inside her again. She had grown up believing kneeling was strictly symbolic of Arathi heritage, something outsiders could never understand. Yet Elias had understood it in a way even some warriors did not. She stepped closer, studying him with serious eyes. "Your calmness is confusing my squad. I'm sorry. I am not asking for an apology," she said, her tone firm. "I am trying to understand." He nodded. "Then ask anything." She paused, then asked the question she had been avoiding. "Do you kneel so easily for anyone?" "No," Elias answered. "Only for those whose purpose I trust." Her throat tightened. For a moment, She didn't know what to do with the warmth that spread across her chest. No warrior had ever spoken to her like that, calm, honest. Without fear or hidden motive, she turned away abruptly, as if trying to regain control. "We begin drills soon," she said quickly. "You will participate again. I want to test something." "Of course," Elias said. Her squad entered soon after, forming lines with the discipline she demanded. But their eyes drifted toward Elias, waiting to see what strange new behavior would appear today. Salira noticed their attention and decided to address the matter directly. "Warriors," she said loudly, "the human will join us for observation and limited participation." Whispers filled the hall. She lifted her hand sharply. Silence. Everyone obeyed instantly. She pointed at Elias. "He is not a threat. He is not a weakness. He simply approaches discipline differently. You will treat him with respect while he learns our ways." The squad nodded reluctantly. They trusted their captain more than anything, and if she said the human was worthy of respect, they would follow. Elias stepped beside the line of warriors. Salira began explaining the next drill, which involved following quick directional commands. Arathi warriors responded with sharp turns and movements. Elias followed as best as he could. His steps were slower but controlled. His body learned quickly, surprising even himself. "You move with intention," Salira commented quietly while walking past him. "I try to," he said. Her eyes lingered on him a moment too long before she moved on. During the fourth round of drills, an unexpected incident occurred. One of Salira's warriors, a broad-shouldered Arathi named Varric, stumbled after missing a command. His balance slipped, and he nearly collided with another warrior. The squad tensed. Mistakes were rare during Salira's sessions. Before Salira could react, Elias moved automatically, stepping into Varric's fall and steadying him with surprising speed. It wasn't forceful, it was supportive, controlled, and natural. Elias simply acted on instinct, saving the warrior from hitting the floor. Varric stared at him in shock. No human had ever moved like that during training. Salira stepped forward quickly, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Elias, why did you move?" "I saw he was about to fall," Elias said softly, "and I didn't want him to get hurt." "That was not your responsibility," she said, though her voice wasn't angry. "I know," he replied, "but I was close enough to help." Varric bowed his head awkwardly. "Human, thank you." The way he said "thank you" carried real respect, not obligation. Salira couldn't look away from Elias. The more she watched him, the more she realized that everything he did, every step, every gesture, every word, came from intention, not reaction. He acted with clarity she rarely saw even among her best warriors. She called for a break. The warriors dispersed to drink water, stretch, or clean their training blades. But Salira approached Elias again, unable to keep her thoughts silent any longer. "You are not like other humans," she said quietly. "I've heard that before," he replied with a small smile. "I mean it," she insisted. "Your discipline is different. Your decisions are calm. Even your mistakes are controlled." She paused, unsure how to phrase the next part. "When you kneel, when you follow my commands, it feels like you are not obeying out of duty. You are choosing to." "Yes," he said simply. "Why?" "Because I see strength in you," he answered. "Not the kind that crushes others, but the kind that guides them." Salira inhaled sharply. She had been praised before, honored before, obeyed before, but no words had ever hit her like those. Something inside her chest warmed again, and she hated how easily Elias caused it. "Does kneeling comfort you?" she asked softly. "Yes," he admitted. "It reminds me that strength doesn't always mean standing taller. Sometimes it means grounding yourself, opening yourself, trusting someone else to lead without harming you." She didn't know what to say. She had spent her entire life believing leadership meant commanding without question, but Elias was teaching her that there was another kind of strength, quiet, gentle, steady, and somehow just as powerful. We will continue drills this evening, she said after a long pause, using formality to hide the emotions swirling inside her. I expect your focus. You will have it, he replied sincerely. He always gave her exactly what she asked for, nothing more, nothing less, but with a depth that made her chest feel unsteady. As he turned to leave, Salira called his name one more time. Elias. Yes, Captain? Yesterday, when you knelt, did you feel shame? No, he said softly. I felt understood. The answer lingered in the air long after he walked away. Salira stood alone in the hall again, her heart beating in a rhythm she had never felt before. She didn't understand the human, not fully, but she wanted to. And that desire felt dangerous and important at the same time. Little did she know that the next crisis on the station would force her to confront the truth behind Elias's calm strength and her growing connection to him. The station had seen peaceful days for months, but peace in deep space was always fragile. On the morning the crisis began, the air felt different even before alarms sounded. Elias noticed it first, as he walked through the corridor toward the training hall. The lights flickered once, just for a second, like a nervous twitch running through the metal bones of the station. He slowed his steps, sensing something wrong. Orothi stations were built strong. Flickering lights never happened unless something was disrupting power from outside. He reached the training hall just as Salira stepped out, her expression sharp and alert. She was speaking into her wrist, calm in quick, clipped phrases. When she saw Elias, she ended the transmission and approached him with urgent steps. You should return to your room, she said immediately. Elias frowned. What happened? Unknown vessels entered our zone, she said. Their signals do not match any allied groups. They have disabled our outer sensors. We suspect mercenaries. Elias felt a chill. Are they attacking? Not yet, she answered. But her jaw tightened. They are circling us like predators. They want something. And they chose your station. They chose a weak point in our empire's line, she said bitterly. Or so they think. The hall lights dimmed again. A moment later, the deep echo of a distant alarm vibrated through the floor. Salira touched her calm. All warriors, report to your positions immediately. Her voice was strong, but Elias sensed a heaviness beneath it, a silent fear, not for herself, but for her squad, her people, and perhaps for him too. Go, she said firmly. You are not trained for battle. I can help, Elias insisted. You can help best by staying safe. He held her gaze with calm, steady eyes. Captain, trust also means letting others stand beside you. Her breath caught for a brief moment. Then she looked away, torn between instinct and her growing understanding of him. Before she could respond, a station-wide voice filled the air. Attention, outer defense grid offline. Unknown vessels demanding immediate surrender. The Orothi warriors rushing past them clenched their jaws, muttering curses. Salira's expression hardened into something Elias had only seen once, when she faced a dangerous beast during a previous patrol. It was the look of someone preparing to protect everyone she cared about. Come with me, she said suddenly. Elias blinked. I thought you wanted me to stay. That was before the situation changed, she said sharply. You will stay where I can see you. I will not risk losing track of you in a crisis. Her tone left no room for argument. Elias followed her through twisting corridors until they reached the command deck. The room was buzzing with activity. Screens displayed the fleet of dark, sharp-edged ships surrounding the station. Warriors hurried between consoles, voices overlapping as they tried to restore defenses. Salira stepped forward, and the room shifted instantly into disciplined silence. Report. One of her officers bowed his head. Captain, the mercenaries demand we surrender our station resources and turn over 3 research subjects. Elias frowned. Research subjects? Salira nodded grimly. They mean the alien civilians we rescued weeks ago. Children. Families. They want hostages or the technology they carry. And you can't give them either, Elias said softly. Never, she said in a low voice. The officer continued. Captain, they have jammed our signals. We cannot call for backup. Then we fight without backup, she replied. Elias watched the screens carefully. He noticed something strange. The mercenary ships moved in uneven patterns, like they were adjusting their engines too often. They're hiding damage, he said quietly. Salira turned to him. Explain. He pointed at the display. Their lead ship. The way it keeps shifting position, it's trying to hide a weak power core. The rotation is too frequent. They don't want you to know the vulnerability. Salira leaned closer to the screen. You're certain? Yes. And if you target that core, the fleet will lose its main power relay. They'll scatter or retreat. Her officers murmured in surprise. Salira stared at Elias with a new expression, one mixed with admiration, shock, and something deeper. That plan requires a distraction, she said slowly. A dangerous one. I can do it, Elias said. No, she snapped instantly. Absolutely not. You need someone small enough to move through the abandoned maintenance tunnel, Elias said. Your warriors are too large. I've studied the map. I can reach the manual override before they detect me. Elias, she said quietly, you are not a soldier. I don't have to be, he answered gently. I only have to help. Salira looked at him as if the world had tilted. For a moment, she felt something she had never felt, not fear for herself, but fear of losing him. This is not your fight, she said. It became my fight the moment I stepped onto this station, he replied. This is my home now. These are my people. Her jaw trembled slightly before she steadied it. I should not allow this. But you know it's the best chance, he said. Silence filled the room. No one dared speak. Every warrior watched their captain struggle with a decision that tore through her composure. Finally, she stepped closer to Elias. If you do this, you do not do it alone. She placed her hand gently over his. I will guide you through every step. He nodded. I trust you. Those 3 words hit her harder than the emergency siren. She removed a ceremonial mark from her armor, a thin metal strip engraved with her squad's emblem. She pressed it onto his upper arm. The room gasped. That mark was given only to warriors preparing for dangerous missions. Salira, Elias whispered, touched. I'm not a Rothi. You fight for us, she replied. That makes you more Arathi than some born here. Her voice shook slightly, but she hid it well. Within minutes, they moved to the maintenance level beneath the station. The air was colder here, filled with the echo of distant machinery. The lights were dim, and the hallway stretched like a long metallic throat. Salira stopped at the tunnel entrance. She held Elias's shoulders firmly. You must stay low, she instructed. Move quietly. The mercenaries may detect any energy surge. I understand. When you reach the manual override, wait for my command, she said. Do not pull it early. I'll listen. She leaned closer unconsciously, her forehead nearly touching his. For a moment, she forgot everyone watching. Elias, return safely, she whispered. He gave a small, reassuring smile. I'll return. I promised to follow your lead, didn't I? Salira exhaled shakily and stepped back. Go. And do not break that promise. Elias entered the tunnel. Darkness wrapped around him, broken only by the soft blue glow of emergency lights. He crawled through tight spaces, climbed over pipes, and slid past old wiring systems. The sounds of distant engines and muffled explosions vibrated through the walls. His comm buzzed softly. Salira's voice reached him. You're halfway there. Your heartbeat is steady. Good. Elias smiled faintly. You're monitoring my heartbeat? I am monitoring the mission, she said quickly. Then her voice softened. And yes, I am monitoring you. He continued forward. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the tunnel. Dust fell from above. Elias pressed himself against the wall as flames roared in the distance. Elias, Salira called urgently. Report. I'm fine, but they're starting their attack. Then hurry, she said. We are losing time. He pushed forward faster. Finally, he reached the manual override, a thick metal lever connected to the emergency disruptor line. One pull would expose the mercenaries' power core to Arothi cannons. I'm in position, Elias whispered. Wait, Salira said, her voice calm but tense. We must strike when their ships align. Wait. Seconds passed like hours. The comm buzzed with battlefield noise shouts. Weapon fire. Energy bursts. Salira's voice came again, sharper. Now, Elias. Pull it. Now. Elias gripped the lever and pulled with all his strength. A thunderous crack echoed. Lights flared. The entire tunnel shook violently. A blast of heat threw Elias backward. His shoulder slammed against metal, sending lightning pain across his body. He gasped as smoke filled the cramped space. Salira's voice broke through the calm. Elias! Elias, report. He coughed, trying to breathe. I think it worked. It did, she said, voice trembling. Now get back, immediately. Elias pushed himself forward despite the pain. But another shockwave hit. The tunnel ceiling collapsed behind him, blocking the path. He forced himself onward, crawling with aching limbs. Salira, he whispered weakly. I'm trying. Trying. You are not trying, she said fiercely. You are returning. Do you hear me? You promised. Her voice kept him moving. Inch by inch, he dragged himself through the smoke until he finally saw light ahead. Salira and her warriors were waiting at the exit, weapons ready. When Elias emerged, bruised and coughing, Salira ran toward him without hesitation. She dropped to her knees beside him, a gesture no Arathi captain ever made. Elias, she breathed, her voice shaking with a mixture of relief and fear. He looked up at her, exhausted but smiling. Told you. I'd follow your lead. She reached out and steadied him, her golden eyes filled with something she could no longer hide. This mission had shown her many things, but most importantly, it showed her that Elias was no ordinary human. He was someone she could trust, someone she could lose, and someone she didn't want to lose. Not now, not ever. The battle outside raged for another 20 minutes, but the moment Elias collapsed into Salira's arms, he no longer heard the noise clearly. His ears rang from the explosion, and smoke clung to his skin like dust from a collapsing world. His body trembled with exhaustion. Yet his breathing stayed steady. He was hurt, but alive. Salira held him with a grip that was far too gentle for someone known as the Empire's Iron Captain. Her warriors watched, unable to look away. They had never seen her kneel before anyone, not even the highest leaders. But right now, she knelt without hesitation, her armor scraping against the floor, as if she didn't care about anything except the weakened human in her arms. Elias, she whispered again, stay with me. I'm here, he said, forcing a tired smile. Did the plan work? Her comm buzzed before she could answer. One of her officers spoke urgently. Captain, the mercenary fleet is breaking formation. Their main ship lost power. We have an opening. Salira forced herself to rise, helping Elias shift against her side. She raised her voice so everyone could hear. Then attack. Do not let them recover. Her warriors sprinted into action, their movements sharp with renewed strength. They knew the turning point had come from the human lying beside their captain. They didn't just fight for honor now, they fought because they owed him. Salira turned back to Elias, who leaned against a wall to keep himself steady. His arm shook, but he remained conscious. Breathing carefully. You did it, she told him. We did it, he corrected softly. She stared at him for a brief moment, overwhelmed by emotions she had never allowed herself to feel. Arathi captains were taught to be solid, unshakable. But Elias had shaken her world more than any enemy ever had. She touched her comm again. Medical team to the maintenance deck. Immediately. Elias shook his head. I can walk. No, she said firmly. You will not push yourself further. He smiled faintly. You always say that as if you can actually stop me. A strange relief filled her chest at his joke. Even injured, he kept his calm tone. She helped him stand fully, slipping an arm around him so he could lean on her. Together, they walked slowly through the corridor. Warriors passing by stopped and saluted them both. Some touched their fists to their hearts, a sign of deep respect. Elias blinked in surprise. Are they saluting? Me? Yes, Salira said. And they should. He didn't argue, but he felt his cheeks warm slightly. The respect of an Arathi warrior meant more than medals or speeches. It meant they saw him as one of them, even if he wasn't born under their stars. As they reached the main hall, the station shook one final time. A roar echoed through the walls. The mercenary ships, now powerless, were retreating. Their engines flickered desperately before they vanished into the deep dark of space. The battle was over. The station lights brightened. The alarms stopped. The intense hum of weapons charging died away. Warriors cheered, shouting in their melodic Arathi language, voices full of triumph and gratitude. Some cried out Elias's name awkwardly, trying to pronounce it correctly. It sounded broken, but sincere. Salira kept one arm around him as the medical team arrived and guided them toward the infirmary. Elias tried to insist again that he was fine, but his legs nearly gave out, and Salira caught him instantly. No more arguments, she said, her tone softer than usual. He nodded, knowing resistance was pointless. Inside the infirmary, he was placed on a soft platform while healers checked for fractures, burns, and internal damage. Salira stood nearby with crossed arms, but her eyes never left him. The healers worked quickly, applying soothing gel to his bruises and treating the burn along his shoulder. You are lucky, one of the healers said. The blast could have been worse. Luck had nothing to do with it, Salira muttered. He held on because I told him to return. The healer bowed their head respectfully. Then he must value your voice greatly. Salira stiffened, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. She dismissed the healer with a wave. Elias watched her reaction with a small smile. You know, he said, you don't need to stay here. Your warriors probably need you. They can manage, she replied quickly. You are my priority. He blinked, stunned into silence. She realized how strong her words sounded and cleared her throat. I mean, you are the most injured person under my command at the moment. You mean I'm the only injured person? Elias said gently. She didn't answer because he was right. When the healers finished, Elias let out a long breath. The pain had eased, and his mind felt clearer. Salira moved closer, her voice low. Why did you volunteer for the mission, Elias? You could have stayed safe. Because you needed someone to do it, he said. And because I trust you. His answer hit her like a slow, heavy pulse. She lowered her gaze for a moment, trying to calm the strange warmth filling her chest. She spoke softly. You risked your life. For my station. For my people. For me. Of course, he said. I care about all three. The honesty in his tone left her frozen for a moment. Then she slowly sat beside him, close enough for their shoulders to touch. She didn't speak, but her silence held meaning. They stayed like that until a young warrior rushed into the infirmary. Captain, the council requests immediate communication. They want to speak to the human as well. Elias raised an eyebrow. The council? Salira stood. Of course they do. Your actions saved a strategic outpost. Even they must recognize that. Elias followed her to the communication chamber. Messages from the Arathi High Council rarely came lightly. When the screen activated, 6 tall figures appeared, blue markings across their armor glowing with rank. Their eyes scanned Elias with deep interest. Human Elias Rivers, one of them spoke. Your bravery is recorded. You saved one of our most important stations. Elias bowed his head respectfully. I only did what was necessary, the council murmured softly, impressed by his humility. Salira stood beside him with pride radiating from her posture, though she kept her expression neutral. Another council member addressed him. We acknowledge your courage. And we acknowledge Captain Salira Vareth for trusting you. Salira stiffened. I acted according to my duty and judgment. No, the council replied. You acted according to something deeper. And the result was victory. Salira glanced at Elias, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. She wasn't ready to acknowledge the feelings growing inside her, but she knew they were there. The council ended the transmission with a commendation and honor rarely given to aliens. Elias felt overwhelmed, but also grateful. Later, as they walked back toward the living quarters, the station calm at last, Salira stopped him in a quiet hallway. "You changed things today," she said. "For this station, for my squad, and for me." Elias looked at her gently. "You changed things for me long before that." Salira inhaled slowly. "When I told you to kneel that day, I did it to prove a point. I thought humans resisted everything. But you trusted me. And I could not understand it. And now? Now," she said quietly, "I realize that trust is not weakness. It is a form of strength, one that I never learned." Elias stepped closer. "Then I'm glad I could show you." Salira looked down, her voice trembling slightly. "When you were hurt, I felt something I have not felt in many years. Fear. The fear of losing someone important." Elias lifted his chin slightly to meet her eyes. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Her anger, pride, and confusion softened all at once. She reached out gently, placing her hand on his shoulder, the one that wasn't injured. "You kneel because you trust," she said softly. "And today, when I knelt beside you, I finally understood what that meant." Elias smiled warmly. "Then we understand each other now." "Not fully," Salira whispered. "But we will." The station around them whispered with distant sounds of life returning to normal. But in that quiet space, a new bond formed. Stronger than battle. Stronger than tradition. Stronger than pride. Salira didn't command him this time. She didn't need to. Elias didn't kneel, but he did something deeper. He stood beside her, proud and steady, ready to follow her anywhere. And for the first time in her life, Salira felt the same. They walked forward together, side by side. Not as captain and subordinate. Not as alien and human. But as two beings who had learned to trust in ways neither had expected. And in the silent strength between them, a new future began.